But the message from Proclaim is the prodigal father. It seems that faithful fathers are becoming rare today. More and more dads are neglecting to fulfill their parental duties. And instead, they focus on work, sports, or their friends. And worse yet, they leave altogether. Now, do you know anyone that this applies to? You know, most of us who attend church may not know fathers like this. But I can assure you, if you talk to the Department of Social Services, and here in Lake County, Lake Family Resource Center, they can tell you of situations in which fathers have yet to be responsible. Unfortunately, those men don't realize the impact they have on the lives of their children. The father in the story of the prodigal son has taught his son morals. He has taught him the right way of living. And so when his son rebelled and ran away, the father had a ray of hope that those lessons he had taught as a child would one day bring his son home. Now, if you've had little children or been around little children many times, they say, tell me a story, especially when it's time to go to bed. And fathers and mothers sometimes cuddle their children in their laps and they tuck their child to bed and tells them a story. It's possibly a tale that they've already heard. But when I have my grandchildren come and visit me here, before they go to bed, I would recite to them the 23rd Psalm. I wanted them to go to bed knowing that they were kept in God's hands. Now, I just started doing that with my grandchildren because what I did with my children was, Kristen and Star, I would tell them stories of fluffy little lambs bounding through the fields, butterflies floating around. I wanted them to go to bed knowing that this world was beautiful, so that the last thing they heard, so that they could rest knowing that they lived in a land of beauty. Not everyone is as blessed and fortunate as that. While stories may have a special appeal for children, we as adults never really outgrow them. I mean, much of our talk with one another happens to be related to stories. You know, whether it's stories that we read in books. How many of you all read books and read novels and like to read the stories? Now, or TV. The Hallmark Channel has done a wonderful job of expanding their base because people love, well, generally women, love the stories on the Hallmark Channel. Or go to movies. Now, I will tell you that scary movies and action movies do really, really well. But so do romantic comedies. Stories tend to grip us. And persons with insight to human beings are well aware of this power. Jesus was aware of the power that a story could tell. Jesus loved to use stories. He was a master of it. We call them parables. And these parables have to do with the truth of life as it was. A man beaten by a roadside. A woman searching for a coin. A farmer sowing his seed. And where does it fall? Or perhaps the best known of all is that story of the prodigal son. There's nothing abstract or esoteric about these parables. John Erskine defined a parable as life speaking. What has our life been speaking to in the last 3 months when we have been limited in where we can go? It has been a major change in how we live. And God only knows how long it's going to go on. Even here at church, we're making major changes in how we come into church and go out of church. But there have been other times when life has changed. I mean, I remember as a little girl when I'd get on the airplane and my mother could actually walk with me to the gate if she weren't getting on the plane. But that is limited now. I remember when I didn't have to go through security and metal detectors and all kinds of things. But that is happening now. That is part of the change that we are experiencing in life. When we look at Luke 15 on this Father's Day, the parable of the prodigal son, we should possibly say it's the parable of two prodigals. Because Webster's dictionary says that there are two definitions for prodigal. One applies to the son, exceedingly reckless and wasteful. I've been there. The other applies to the father, extremely generous and lavish. Been there on occasion too. The story clearly shows the son's rebellion and folly, that it couldn't outlast the father's love. When people read this parable, they often focus on the son. But I'm going to ask you to focus on the father. It may seem simple and obvious, but a father's role begins with being present. When a good father is there, his presence gives his family stability. The stability that they may not otherwise have. Now, recently I've been posting on the church Facebook page these daily meditations from a little AA book called Keep It Simple. And you don't have to be in AA or be in NA or to even do any kind of AA to appreciate the messages that this book offers. I'm becoming more aware of angry fathers and mothers than when I was younger, because I have been more aware and experienced fathers and mothers who have been angry. It says in Keep It Simple on June 16th, it says, addicted people can get high on anger. That's why it's dangerous. We get a false sense of power from being angry. And our anger returns into resentments, and resentments turn into hate. And hate eats at our spiritual souls. Hate eats at the core of who we are spiritually. We can get rid of resentments and hate through prayer, and we can get rid of them by helping others. That's why we pray for those who have wronged us, so our hearts don't fill with hate. This way we use our energy in a healthy way. Our serenity will grow as we see that anger no longer has so much power over our actions. The home is a place that we return to when the going gets tough. A lot of folks start coming back to church as they get older because they view their lives as being limited. A lot of folks come back to church when they're ill, for they need that reassurance of God's love. So here is this building that was built over 127 years ago, 127 years ago. Yeah. This wonderful place that we come to, that we can return to, that we can consider as a sanctuary, a place to renew ourselves. For that is what a sanctuary is. Now, those of you who are at home, you can create a sanctuary wherever you are, because you can ask God to be with you wherever you are. When the prodigal son was all concerned about life and everything was going wrong and he'd thrown away or used up everything he'd been given, he said, I will arise and go to my father. He knew his father would be there and that his presence would be a stabilizing force in his life. For many of us, when we come to church, it becomes a stabilizing force in our lives. Now, I've been here as a member of this church for about 43 years, and I can name 3, maybe 4 times that I heard either a song or a message from a preacher here that changed the anger and frustration that I had into a bright light. I was here once and had loaned somebody some money, and they were having a hard time giving it back to me. And I listened to the Lord's Prayer. Forgive us our trespasses as we forgive those who trespass against us. Now, I grew up Baptist, so it's forgive us our debts as we forgive our debtors. Do you know the relief I felt in that forgiveness? Many of you I've already told that, or some of you, there was a time when my youngest daughter was in a relationship and was to become a parent. And I thought it was too soon. And I was ready to do bodily harm to the person who had put her in that condition. I was here and heard the message of forgiveness, taking joy in new life, being blessed by that life, learning the lessons from the lessons I learned here and putting them into life and finding out that my life is a much more blessed thing. And yes, I'll tell you, I am frustrated all to get out about the fact that the video isn't working and you can't see the music. But God is still here. We are still here. The message of love is still here. Now, lots of stuff has been going on in our world and in our community and in the United States, having to do with the injustice that has been going on for years and years and years to people of color. And the fact that we need to awaken to these issues is one that may be a little hard for us here in Middletown. The reason why it's hard, because, I'm known in this community, and they go, hey, you know Voris, Voris is fine. And yes, I am. But the reality is, we're not just part of Middletown. We're part of other communities. And that's one of the blessings of being a United Methodist. We are part of other communities in other areas. It was interesting because on Facebook, a woman posted a post that awakened her awakening. I was going to read it to you, but couldn't print it. But I'll tell you in summary, she is Anglo. She lives on Cobb Mountain. And her son said to her, I think it might have been last Friday when Oakland was having a Juneteenth celebration, that he wanted to go to the Juneteenth celebration. And she said, what? What are you talking about? You don't know anything about Juneteenth. The only time you've been to Oakland is when we went to the airport. You know, people with good intentions start these marches and rallies and things, but stuff can happen. And here you're too white to be down there. And he said to his mom, but Mom, they need me. And she said, no, you can't go. So he went into his room, and she heard him talking to a friend, telling him that his mom wouldn't let him go. And she said, what am I doing? Here is my son, caring, wanting to be a part of something to make a change. And she went in, and she said, I changed my mind, you can go. Now, keep all your stuff in your front pockets, be sure and wear your mask, have your hand sanitizer, and be respectful. So as he left to go to Oakland, to the Juneteenth celebration, fear gripped her heart. She prayed, and then she thought, this is how I feel for one event. Black mothers and some brown mothers have the same fear every time their child leaves home. She understood life from a different perspective. She even said, my apologies to my law enforcement friends, because she's a Blue Lives Matter person. But Black Lives Matter also. Having compassion with people who are different from she. Broadening her view of her life, the life of her son. And I wrote her yesterday and I said, did he get back okay? And she said, yes, thanks for asking. It's very easy to be authoritarian. I've been that way. The father in our parable realized that, and when his son asked for his portion of his inheritance, the father granted his request. The son had been given freedom to be on his own, and sometimes it's hard to give our children freedom. But the truth of the matter is, the parable is not just about a man and his son. The parable is about God and us. Some of us are very good, and we're good all the time. Goody two-shoes me. But there are those of us who are rebellious and find that that isn't the way we want to live our lives. So we come here to be reminded that God has a way for us to live our lives. And God accepts us and loves us unconditionally. May you too feel the unconditional love of God and be open to the pain of others and live with compassion. This we pray. Amen.